Heartbreak is a wound that cuts deeper when it's from someone you trusted, someone you loved. Imagine being blindsided by betrayal, feeling the weight of someone's indifference when you least expected it. I know how it feels because it happened to me. He left me for my best friend. The shock was so severe I could hardly breathe, and the betrayal stung like nothing I'd ever felt before. But what happened next? It was something no one could have predicted. In that moment, all I could do was wonder how I had gotten here, alone, heartbroken, lost in a sea of what-ifs. I had given him everything, and in return, he took it all for granted. My life became a shell of what it used to be. I was no longer the person I once was. I had to fight to survive this. But here's the thing, I didn't stay broken for long. I turned that heartbreak into fuel to build an empire, a life I could be proud of. And when I had everything I had ever dreamed of, he came crawling back. But by then, I had already moved on. How could someone who betrayed me like that expect to win my heart again? Was I really going to fall for his apology? The question lingered in my mind as the path to my revenge began to take shape. I wasn't always this strong. There was a time when I believed in love, family, and loyalty. Growing up, my family was my world. My parents, though distant at times, had always tried their best to support me. But I always felt a deeper connection with my brother, the one person I thought would always have my back. We shared everything, from childhood memories to our dreams of the future. He was my confidant, my partner in crime, the person who understood me the most. But everything changed when he entered the picture. I'll never forget the day I met him, my best friend. She was everything I wasn't, confident, beautiful, and a master of charm. We instantly hit it off. I never saw the signs of what was coming. I didn't even think twice when they became close. After all, they were like family to me. But there's a point where the line between friendship and something darker becomes blurred. They had crossed that line and I had no idea. The first crack in my world came when I started feeling the distance between us. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. After all, life was busy and people change. But then, I began noticing little things that seemed off. Secretive conversations, whispers behind closed doors, and late-night phone calls that never seemed to end. Still, I didn't want to believe the truth. I trusted them both, maybe too much. It was one night, everything came crashing down. I had just returned home after a long day, tired and mentally drained. My brother was sitting in the living room, looking unusually nervous. She wasn't there, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. My brother told me he needed to talk. At first, I thought it was just one of those brother-sister heart-to-heart moments, but it was anything but. His words hit me like a bombshell, shattering everything I thought I knew. "I'm in love with her," he confessed. "I've been seeing her behind your back for months." My heart stopped. The betrayal was so raw, so painful that I couldn't even respond. I sat there, stunned, as his words sunk in. How could they both do this to me? How could they destroy the one thing I thought was unbreakable? In that moment, my world fell apart. I couldn't fathom what was happening. The pain of the betrayal wasn't just emotional, it felt physical. I could feel it deep in my chest, like I was suffocating. But this was only the beginning. After that night, nothing was the same. They both left me in my darkest hour, my brother and my best friend, both of them gone. The pain was unbearable, but I was determined not to let it break me. It was time to make a change. I realized that I had to rebuild myself. I had to rise from the ashes of this betrayal and create a life that was mine, one that didn't depend on their love or approval. The journey would be long, filled with doubts, self-pity, and anger, but I knew it was the only way forward. I didn't know where to start, but I knew I had to fight back. And I did, slowly but surely. I began to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. But I was also becoming something more than just a survivor. I was transforming into a force to be reckoned with. The road to redemption would be painful, but it would be worth it. I was going to show them both that leaving me was the biggest mistake they ever made, and they'd regret it for the rest of their lives. As the days turned into weeks, then months, I realized that no one could save me except for myself. I had always been the type to rely on others, family, friends, the people closest to me. But now, with the ones I trusted the most gone, I had to learn how to be my own savior. It wasn't easy. Every day felt like I was walking through thick fog, unable to see clearly, unsure of which path to take. But in that fog, I slowly began to find my way. I started with the basics, getting out of bed, facing the day, and pushing myself to do something. Anything. At first, it felt forced. But as the weeks passed, I started to see small changes in myself. I was waking up earlier, taking better care of my body, and even getting back into hobbies I had abandoned, painting, reading, exercising. It was a slow process, but each small victory felt like a step toward reclaiming my life. Then came the realization that I was more capable than I had ever given myself credit for. I had always been hesitant to take risks, always waiting for someone else's approval. But now, there was no one to seek approval from, no one to tell me what I should or shouldn't do. I was free, and with that freedom came a sense of power I had never experienced before. I started focusing on my career. I had been stuck in a dead-end job for years, waiting for opportunities that never came. Now, I wasn't waiting. I was making things happen. I enrolled in courses, learned new skills, and pushed myself beyond my comfort zone. I found mentors, strong, successful women who showed me that power doesn't come from others, but from within. With their guidance, I grew in ways I had never imagined. As I was growing, I was also healing. But that didn't mean the pain went away. I still had moments where I'd find myself crying, reliving the betrayal. I'd wonder if I had done something wrong, if I was at fault. But the more I built my new life, the more I realized that it wasn't about me being wrong. It was about them choosing to hurt me and me deciding not to stay down because of it. I was becoming someone new, a version of myself I didn't know existed. I was stronger, more confident, and more independent. I began to embrace the idea that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, my worth, and my happiness. The revenge was simply a bonus, something I knew would come once I was ready. During this period of growth, I met new people who started to play significant roles in my life. Some were colleagues, others were friends who had been in my life all along, but I had never seen them clearly before. These relationships brought a sense of warmth, of belonging, that I hadn't felt in a long time. They reminded me that not everyone betrays you, and there are still good people in this world. One person who stood out in particular was Liam. He was someone I met through work, a colleague who saw the potential in me before I even saw it in myself. He didn't know my past, but he knew my worth. Liam became a friend and, over time, someone I trusted deeply. He showed me that there was more to life than holding on to the past. He encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone, to aim higher, and to believe in myself. As I grew closer to Liam, I started to question everything. Was revenge really what I wanted? I had spent so much time focusing on making them regret their actions that I had lost sight of my own goals. Was it enough to prove to them that I was better off without them, or was there more to my journey than just that? Despite my internal struggles, one thing was clear. I was no longer the person I had been when they left me. I was a new version of myself, and the world could see it. People started noticing my achievements, my resilience, and my confidence. I was getting the recognition I had always wanted, not from them, but from people who truly valued me for who I had become. And all the while, the question lingered in the back of my mind. Would they ever realize what they had lost? Would they ever see me for who I had become? It didn't matter as much as it once did, but I couldn't ignore it. Every time I passed the old places we used to go together, or saw the things we used to share, it would stir something in me. I would remember how it felt to love them, to trust them, and to believe that they would always be by my side. But that was the past. The future, the one I was creating, was mine alone. The more I achieved, the more determined I became. I knew there was only one way to show them I had truly moved on, by showing them just how far I had come. I wasn't going to prove anything to them. I was going to prove it to myself. As I continued on this path, I knew the moment of confrontation was getting closer. The day when they would see me not as the girl they left behind, but as the woman who had risen from the ashes of their betrayal, stronger than they ever thought possible. It was only a matter of time before I would show them exactly what they had missed out on. The day had finally arrived. I had built a life I was proud of, a life that no longer depended on anyone's validation. My name was being spoken in rooms I never thought I would step into, and my accomplishments were becoming the kind of stories that inspired others. Yet, despite all of this, one thing remained unfinished: the confrontation with them. I had moved on, or so I thought, but there was still this nagging part of me that needed them to see the woman I had become. Not because I craved their approval, but because I needed them to understand the consequences of their betrayal. I needed them to know that their actions, though they had hurt me, had not broken me. If anything, it had made me stronger, more driven, and more determined than ever. It happened one evening. I received a message from my brother. He wanted to meet. My heart skipped a beat. After months of silence, he was reaching out. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew it was time. It was now or never. I agreed to meet him at a cafe, a neutral ground, where we could talk face to face. When I walked in, I spotted him immediately. He was sitting at a table near the window, looking somewhat nervous, his hands fidgeting with a cup in front of him. I could tell he wasn't sure how to begin. But I wasn't about to make it easy for him. As I sat down across from him, I could see the guilt in his eyes. But what he didn't know was that it didn't matter anymore. He could feel as guilty as he wanted, but that didn't change the fact that he had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And there was nothing he could say that would undo that. "I'm sorry," he began, his voice shaky. "I know I hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know how much I regret what happened." I stared at him for a moment, taking in his words. They were exactly what I had expected. But I wasn't the same person I had been when the betrayal first happened. I wasn't the girl who had cried for days on end, the girl who had begged for answers. I was the woman who had built her life from the ground up, without them. "I don't need your apology," I said, my voice steady and firm. "What you did was unforgivable. But the truth is, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm not that person you left behind. I'm someone you'll never have a chance to know again." His eyes widened in shock, and I could see the realization dawn on him. The woman sitting across from him was not the broken girl he had left in the dust. She was someone who had risen above all the pain, all the heartache. And there was nothing he could do to change that. "I don't expect anything from you," I continued. "But I needed you to know that your betrayal didn't break me. It made me stronger. It pushed me to become someone I am proud of." There was a long silence as the weight of my words sank in. His face was a mixture of regret and disbelief, and for the first time, I saw him struggle to find words. He didn't know how to respond to the woman who had stopped seeking his approval and started living for herself. In that moment, I felt a sense of power I had never felt before. The truth was out. I had done it. I had proven to myself and to him that I was no longer the person he had hurt. I had moved on, and nothing could take that away from me. But just as I was about to stand up and leave, he stopped me. "I've been a fool," he said quietly. "I can't change what I did, but I hope one day you can forgive me." I looked at him for a moment, seeing the man who had once been my brother, the man who had broken my heart. But I didn't feel anger or sadness anymore. I felt nothing but indifference. "I'm not here to forgive you," I replied. "I'm here to tell you that I've already forgiven myself." And with that, I stood up and walked out. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to say. It was over. The confrontation had taken place, and I had come out victorious. The weight that had been on my shoulders for so long had lifted, and for the first time in months, I felt free. This wasn't just a victory over them, it was a victory over myself. I had faced the person who had hurt me the most, and I had come out stronger. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and my worth. And as I walked away, I knew that I had finally let go of the past. What they did no longer had any hold over me. I was free. The aftermath of the confrontation was peaceful, surprisingly so. When I left the cafe that day, I felt lighter than I had in years. There was no anger or bitterness clouding my thoughts, only a deep sense of closure. He didn't have the power over me that he once did. The apology, though heartfelt, couldn't change the past, and I wasn't looking for reconciliation. What I needed most was to let go of the hurt, to walk away from the past that had held me captive for so long. And I had done just that. Days passed, and I found myself reflecting on everything that had led me to this moment. The betrayal, the pain, the struggle, it had all been part of the journey, a journey that had made me who I was now. I had transformed from a person who had been desperate for their approval into someone who no longer needed anyone to define my worth. I had built something incredible from nothing. And in the process, I had learned one of the most valuable lessons of all. My happiness and success were not dependent on others. I thought about the people who had stood by me during the darkest times. Liam, the colleagues who had become friends, and the mentors who had pushed me to keep going when I wanted to quit. These were the people who had truly seen me, who had valued me for who I was, not for what I could give them or how I could make them feel. They had become my true family, the ones who cheered for me without any ulterior motive. As for my brother, I realized that I didn't need his validation anymore. His actions had taught me to rely on myself, to trust my own strength. I had forgiven him, but it wasn't for him. It was for me. Letting go of the anger and the resentment allowed me to fully embrace my new life, unencumbered by the weight of past wounds. The truth was, the confrontation had never been about winning or losing. It was about finding closure, about taking back control of my life. I had done it. I had rebuilt myself into someone I was proud of, and nothing, no betrayal, no apology, could take that away from me.